top four going to the World Cup. He's had a terrible game, and the ironic cheering is more at Conte perhaps than it is at
Yeah.
Emerson, because frankly, at least he's recognised he's got to make the change and bring on somebody else. So maybe it's not a kind of as it's partly loaded at him and it's partly loaded at the management. Because
So,
we don't have the option of texting in to a special number
yeah.
with a little poll. It's not the X factor where you can say get him off and get that person on. We don't have that level of influence during the game.
No, I agree, and I like I say, I'm not advocating booing. I'm not advocating this because whichever way you dice this up, he's going to feel shit about this situation. I get that, on a human level,
Then
of course he is.
of course he is. Put your
But
socks
that's
up,
not
mate.
his fault. I think that is the the management's fault. They've got to do something about this. But then answer is actually, Rich. This is a question for you. Booing, good or bad? When you look at it, right? We got Nuno out and got Conte in.
I don't know. Was it not the results that got Nuno out?
Yeah, but that game, true. But that game where it just turned so hostile, I think that was the thing, right? It was how else do fans say this has got to change? That because we're in this ridiculous situation where, despite the fact that we're getting good results, things just don't feel right. And there's so many, it almost feels like oxymorons, right? You've got a situation where we've led in the last 8 games for 9 minutes. And yet we've scored the most goals, and Conte's had the best start he's ever had to a season. I mean, how do you figure that out? It's just, there's a lot of confusing things going on at the moment, and fans, I think, are confused as well.
Well, there's a lot of frustration, I mean, there's a lot of talk about, the results are all very well and good, but the football's rubbish to watch, and it is, in great chunks terrible to watch. It's Mourinho-esque, isn't it, at times? I mean, to answer your original question, I've got nothing against people booing. I don't join in with it. I'm thankful that I don't have a job where people get to fucking jeer at me if I have a bad day, because we all have them.
Yeah.
And that's as far. I mean, that's my personal opinion. There are many things I don't join in with in the ground.
Yeah,
that's one of them. There are certain chants that I won't join in with, but I also sort of, agree that other people should have their own agency in order to do that. I mean, there is the argument that we pay an awful lot of money and we deserve to have our voices heard, and I can kind of agree with that on, up to a certain point. But it's a tough time, and I think the frustration probably that was aimed at Emerson in particular on Saturday was as much levelled against the entire side through the lens of what had happened on Wednesday and what had happened the weekend before and what had happened the weekend before that. So I guess that it's a composite thing, isn't it? I don't believe that they were ironically just booing at him because he'd had a bad game. I think it was he's had a bad game and he's had a few bad games, and everybody's been having bad games, and we'd watched another first half where we'd capitulated at home and made it difficult for ourselves. So
I think that's
it is what it is, I suppose.
I think that's right. That it is a kind of composite and complex issue. I think it could you could factor so many things in. The fact that the Gooners are flying high and they're running away with things. The fact that we just went out of the cup a few days before with the most abject performance, and we were seeing a repeat. We're going already down, losing. The fact that that perhaps that a lot of people, the cost of living at the moment is absolutely ridiculous, but we pay a lot of money to go to these games, that people's livelihoods are on the line at the moment, that we've just come out of a pandemic. There's so many factors that are in people's kind of psychology with how these things, and sometimes you just want to let it out. Sometimes when you've had a few drinks, especially, the cork comes out the bottle, and if we win, they're all a hero. And if Emerson has scored the winner, nobody would have been, just like going silent or booing him. They would have been cheering to the rafters.
If he'd have scored that first one, it'd have been all right, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's my point, isn't it? Yeah. And that's the point. And so, you watch him do some stuff, and you think actually there might be a player in there but then you watch, another 30 minutes of stuff and go, bloody hell, mate, you can't even pass the ball. So it's a tough one. And, we all want him to do well. And we all want, we all pray like he has a Sissoko rebirth and comes back in a month's time. And he's like, bloody hell, who's this guy? What do they do? Body swap him or something? So, for an actual footballer.
We've got a history of this sort of road to Damascus thing, haven't we? Where they sort of have this big turnaround and, so exactly. It could happen for him. Fair play. I hope it does. I don't see it, but I hope it does. And, over the history of these pods, I've been a great defender of him. And I thought there is a player in there, and I still think there is, but just maybe like Ndombele, not for us.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I think the bigger problem we're going to have is who comes back from injury and what does our squad look like when people come back in December. So that's my bigger concern at the moment. He might be our only bloody option. So let's wait and see.
Absolutely. So I'm going to sort of have a look at the equaliser again. So we have Bentancur scores the equaliser. I think Dirty whips it over. So when he came on, I think he automatically kind of up, changed the game up. And I think he whipped the cross across to Bentancur, who equalised. I think it had a little bit of a deflection. Thoughts on that, Rich?
Well, I mean, this sort of alludes to what we were just talking about as well. I was really surprised not to see Dirty start. And, it is good to see him coming on and having this kind of positive effect on the forward play. I mean, the one thing that we can routinely criticise Emerson for as an ongoing fault and not just a dip in form is that his end product is not that's not his thing, whereas it is with Dirty, and I think that was more than anything, that was really pleasing to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm kind of at the moment where I think we're 3-3. So I think we are, but we're probably in a parallel universe at the moment. But anyway, so coming to you, we're going to talk about the winner. So talk us through that winner, Kane to Kulusevski, and then to Bentancur.
So this was kind of this excellent piece of work that sort of happened in that sort of corner of the pitch, wasn't it? Where you just, I genuinely thought it was a dead ball. I genuinely thought this was going to go nowhere because he was working it around, but then he kind of was going more and more drifting to the corner and sort of getting himself into a tighter space. And I just thought, I don't know what he's going to do with it. He's not going to be able to cross it because he's kind of too far back, if you like, and there's too many bodies there, so I'm just not sure what's going to happen. And he just sort of works it a bit more into the middle, and then obviously Roddy kind of gets himself to a position that is literally the easiest thing in the world, which is just out and back in again. It's like, and because obviously drawing all the players in, he's so onside because after the Leeds squad is in front of him, it's like, actually, I wouldn't say the simplicity of it. I would say because nothing like of it, not the simplicity, but I suppose just the knowledge that just draw them all in like flies around a honey, but then get yourself into a position where you just got the trajectory and bang, and there it was. And it was quite an unbelievable thing.
Yeah. I don't know how he does it. He seems to sort of, as you say, draw them all in, knock it past them, and then still get past them to get the ball to pass it on. It's like,
I know.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that, Rich?
Well, I mean, it was a fabulous piece of footwork, wasn't it? And the more you look at it, when we watched it live, like sort of Simon said, you think this is going over the byline. He's run himself into a dead end here.
Dead end, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the way, the last touch that he gave himself before he squared it into the 6-yard box for the finish was beautiful because it was sort of weighted in a way that invited the keeper to come out off his line as well because you could see he thought, oh, he's overhit that.
I'll grab it.
Come and get it.
Yeah.
But he really hadn't, and it was just, if it was deliberate, it was the most exquisite bit of footwork, know. And who was it was it Perisic or Kane that was right next to Bentancur when he actually finished it? Because the other thing that struck me was, how did they both not stick a leg out and then get in each other's way?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is what I'm saying. So on the show, on the post match show, Kulusevski was kind of like he could see he just as he's going he could see, as he was moving into the position, he just knew what he was going to do, and he just knew and he could see just Roddy moving into position. He's like, great, I've got options. I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to wait it as I see fit, and one of them will, and Roddy will get it.
Yeah, he almost like he seems to play that game, doesn't he? That they're going to think I've lost this one. I've lost control of it, and he just never does. He's always in control of it, and you could see it, the reaction, the way I mean, perhaps I'm reading too much into this, but I just thought the way that the players then reacted to him teeing up that goal. Of course, obviously Bentancur scored it, but his contribution to the goal, it seemed like the players just ran to Kulusevski as if to say, this is what we've been missing.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But also, I mean sorry, Rich, go on.
No, go on. No. I was just going to say, oh, thanks, Simon. You can see that he has become so central to that sort of team, not just from a playing perspective, but he seems to be a big character in the side. I mean, I know one of you were talking about Delhi earlier. And you remember back in the days when that team really worked. Yeah, there were 3 or 4 quite obvious. I mean, there was famously Ali and Delhi and Dyer had that sort of bromance, kind of thing. But there were 3 or 4 really strong personal connections in that side. And you can see that Kulusevski's already developing that kind of a link, not just a playing link with the players. You can see they're all in it together, and I think that's vital.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what I also like is the way he speaks about things and his courage, the way he speaks about things. The fact that when he talks about the game, he says there's so much more to come from us. And that, and he talks in sort of brave terms about what the ambition of him and the team is going to be and how different he thinks it will be after the break. I like to hear that. And at his age, you don't need to say that. Maybe you wouldn't have quite the confidence to say it because you haven't done it. But he's like an older player, and in his head.
I really agree. He is. You can see that he's a mature young man. He has got some sort of this sort of footballing knowledge. He has a footballing brain.
Yeah.
So we've seen players that are just deadheads. We just all earlier, but we've seen deadhead players who just hoof it and hope for the best. He's a smart guy. He's, as you say, he comes across as being older than his years. He's 22, and you kind of think this is great. This is exactly what we need. He's building that relationship with. I mean, I appreciate him and Bentancur. Obviously go back, but you can see that relationship develop as Bentancur's becoming himself also a better player, and he's maturing in the side. So we're seeing this other partnership develop. So having the Son and Kane partnership and having Bentancur and Kulusevski partnership is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I actually, when we scored the equaliser, I didn't get up and cheer. I was just like, good. Well, that's kind of the minimum. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
It's like we've been crap, and actually, I'm not even sure. Getting out of here with a point, fine. I'm not. I didn't. I just sat in my seat where everyone's going around me. When he scored that winner, I was out of my seat because I was like, that's how we need to perform. We need to keep going until the death, and we need to make sure that these players are doing things that you think aren't possible. Yeah, and that's how
it felt like it was coming. But I'll admit, maybe unwisely given my condition, I was out of my seat, waving my jumper around my head. I jumped out, ran down the stairs to be met by Jamie, who was then trying to lift me up in the air, and then I was waving like this my jumper around my head. It's just like it just felt a lovely moment of a really nice redemptive moment for him coming on, us getting the winner, which we really deserved.
I felt so,
yeah. But do we need, given the fact that he's been out for a while, do we need a Kulusevski backup, do you think?
Well, considering that at the moment the Kulusevski backup is still Lucas Moura, I would say definitely yes.
Yeah. So in this upcoming window, I think, you know, we talked a lot about the defense, but I do wonder if we're going to have to. He's going to be one of that position, because if he gets injured again, you
Yeah,
know, we can't be
we
playing
saw
this, we can't be playing this football again, can we?